Great start. Good morning. Just setting the stage for everybody that's joining us. Today's webinar is about how important are stories in early childhood, but I think a lot of our panelists have views that beyond the early childhood, how important stories can be in daily life, in work, etc. So I think it's going to be a very interesting panel. Instead of me introducing everybody, what I want to usually do is to ask our panelists to take a very brief moment, introduce themselves, and go around and kind of just quickly make sure that the audience understands what kind of esteemed panelists we actually have. It's important for them to understand that. So, in no particular order, but Dr. Jawar, if you would like to start and introduce yourself, please.
So I am Dr. Jawar Surisetti. I am an advisor to the Government of India and do a little odd jobs for the government as well as for the society.
Great. Dr. Swati, brief introduction about yourself, please.
So I'm Dr. Swati Popatwats, President, Early Childhood Association and Association for Primary Education and Research. And my job title is President of Podar Education Network.
Got it. Colonel Shekhar.
Hello viewers. Good morning. Namaskar, Kushamdeen, Salam Alaikum. It's an honor to be here. I'm Colonel Shekhar. As you can see, I was a soldier for about over 20 years in the Army Education Corps. Have been a teacher, a principal, a director, now an independent education consultant, and hopefully enjoying my life. Thank you.
Great. Ms. Sonia.
So I'm Sonia Delia, and the one word to describe me is 3 decades as an early years teacher, a teacher facilitator, an author, somebody working with low-cost activity-based learning programs, and a traveler. So that's my little description, and very, very happy to be here with all of you today.
Great. Mr. Bhavin Shah.
Hi Ashish. Thanks a lot for this invitation. I am Bhavin Shah, Chief Executive of Education World Magazine, India's sole education news magazine, and also Parents World.
Hi, Bhavin.
Hi, how are you? Hi, everyone.
Hello, Bhavin. You are looking
Hi,
exceedingly smart today.
So none of the corona effect.
So very quickly, so most of you already know, but for the audience that doesn't know, I am the managing director for the India operations of a Silicon Valley-based edtech company called Square Panda. We're into early childhood education, and that's why this webinar and this panel. We've been working with all of these people at a different level, but today, I think it's going to be very informative. First of all, just very quickly, I want to thank all the panelists for taking time out, joining us, sharing your views. And then again, similar thanks to all the audience out there. I know we're all working from home or at home and still trying to keep pace with what's going on and all that kind of stuff. We have a bunch of different audience, right? We have parents joining us, we have educators joining us, we have teachers joining us. Instead of me taking too much time, I think we want to hear from each panelist, take 4 or 5 minutes, talk about our main topic from your perspective. And I've gotten your perspective from each one of you. And I think it's very different, by the way. None of you have shared a perspective that's very similar to each other. So this is going to be interesting. And again, maybe we can go in the same order that we did the introductions in. And this way it'll keep life easier for me to go through. Dr. Jawar? Sir.
Yes. So I'll take psychology as my base. So for me as a psychologist, this looks that storytelling, whether it's in early childhood or any time, is a great equalizer. Garib ho ya amir ho, storytelling is a very integral part of the childhood that each of us has had. because it connects with traditions, myths, everything. Our socialization is through this Ramayana, Mahabharata, and all stories. Maybe even Humpty Dumpty is a story for me. They also provide a lot of oxytocins, which again does not see whether you are rich or poor. The brain produces oxytocins the moment there are emotions involved in whatever learning is happening. So that is the reason when more oxytocins are produced, more learning happens. And that's why a particular area of psychology known as narrative psychology has taken place, which is very interesting because storytelling is the integral part of narrative psychology. And even you see when interviewers start interviewing people, they want to get stories out of them because it integrates the audience interest in anything that they do. So there are better neural connections when somebody is telling a story to you. And that's the reason why the memory keeps in childhood stories that you've been told by your grandfathers, etc. Within yourself for long periods of time. You might forget stories of 11th, 12th standard, but we believe that early childhood education stories remain with us throughout life. And then you, last but not the least, the social media technologies have allowed education, storytelling to spread throughout, and the audience has become much larger, I think. So that's the perspective I wanted to start with.
Great. I think that's very interesting. Just for the audience, I know that people will have certain questions that they want answered, and we want this to be more interactive. So there is a screen that you can actually input your questions on. And as soon as we're done with our first pass with everybody, we'd like to take some of these questions and I think make it a little more interactive. So please use that Q&A button and submit your questions so that we can see it and our panelists can answer them for you. Moving on, Dr. Swati, your view, please.
Okay. So first of all, Ashish, pleasure to meet you and pleasure to be with all these lovely panelists. I think life itself is a story, and our childhood starts with stories, nighttime stories, bedtime stories, stories on the lap of our grandparents. So basically, it's very interesting for children to hear things in a form of a story, because the oral story tradition basically helps children imagine, create characters, etc. If you see the word history, history has a story behind. So everything that we do these days, whether it's Hollywood, Bollywood or television, everything has a story. In fact, it's very important to note that National Geographic and Animal Planet became more and more viewed because they started telling stories about the animals. They started giving names to a particular animal and they recorded their movements, etc. The story is something that engages us as human beings, maybe because our brains are wired for it. So if you look at the Navras, which means the 9 emotions, it helps you live those 9 emotions through a story. And that is the most satisfying thing that people and children experience when they go through a story. Because otherwise, in our daily day-to-day life, we may be just using 1 or 2 emotions, but the story helps you live through those emotions and come out of it feeling more happier, feeling more engaged. Also very important to note is that the 3 teaching maxims, that is known to unknown, simple to complex, and concrete to abstract, these are involved in stories. So it is no wonder that Gijubhai chose stories as a medium of teaching the children, because children get engaged and they relate to stories. Let me also end by giving an example of Panchatantra. If you see, Panchatantra was a story based education that those 5 princes got. They were very unruly, misbehaved, and Vishnu Sarma brought up these boys with stories, engaged them through stories, because they refused to listen to anything except stories. So it's very important for us to understand that when we talk of education or when we talk of parenting, story is the one tool that all of us must have and must relate to and must engage in.
Great. Colonel Shekhar, your view I know goes beyond early childhood, so I'd love to hear a little more on that.
Right. Interesting to hear Dr. Jawar and Swati talk about in psychology and early childhood perspectives. But it's interesting what Dr. Jawar initially said, storytelling is a great equalizer. So is Corona. So something to think about. COVID-19 is also a great equalizer like storytelling. Yeah. Just imagine, I'll give you a perspective. Just imagine, I am in the Indian Military Academy. The cadet runs 5 kilometers in the morning with his weapon, about 22 kilos of weight. Then the adjutant makes him do drill for about an hour. After that, after consuming 8 slices of bread and 4 bhujiyas, 4 andeka bhujiyas, the youngster is made to do swimming for 2 periods. After that, these cadets are in my class. If you want to know how to sleep with your eyes open, you can ask us. We are specialists at that. Without relating a story, without having something beyond normal, I would be a dead duck in that 5th period class. True. Therefore, to be a storyteller, a teacher, is something very basic in each one of us. Secondly, the photograph you see behind is that of my father, who was an IPS officer. And the most abiding memory of his in terms of being an officer was that when he was principal security officer to the Prime Minister, then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, who used to move from one place to the other and get down anywhere to eat anything. He used to relate to me how as police officers, they have stood below coconut trees to ensure that the coconut given to the Prime Minister is pure and doing it with their own hands. Those stories you remember, you reflect. And if you check up with Vishwanathan Anand, he talks about being able to remember a great deal of his moves through the context in which he has been. But unfortunately, he forgets his wedding anniversary to dire consequences as his wife relates. So therefore, it's a simple point. Whether you are a child, whether you are a youngster, a teenager, an adult, a middle-aged, or somebody beyond the 80s, storytelling makes it contextual, makes it lively, makes the world come alive in your very, very boring life. That makes learning that much more interesting. Thank you, sir.
I think that was great storytelling, Colonel. That was perfect example of storytelling. Got us very engaged to what you were saying. So perfect example by saying it. Ms. Sonia, I know that you've been in this space for a while, working with kids, developing content for kids. Your views?
From the creators of the award-winning English Early Literacy Phonics Playset, we bring to you a research-based, revolutionary and cutting-edge English reading product. Square Tales combine digital learning with physical application, transforming your pre-readers into independent and confident readers. Your child starts instantly from our bookshelf. Our patented blending engine helps your child blend letter sounds to form words with only 8 letters. Once they practice the words, they can start to read along the story through a very engaging and interactive interface. Several engaging activities at the end of each book help the child revise what they have learned.
Good job!
And while the children revise, our product assess their learning. Just try Square Tales 15 minutes a day to see a stark progress in your child.
So storytelling for me is my favorite tool. Going back, like I said, 3 decades, my first day in school, I walk in with a little bell, that my mom gave me because I was not a good student. So she was praying really hard and saying she should get a good job. I walked into this really noisy classroom with a very, very strict looking in charge saying, Sonia, date on the right, moral of the day in the center, and absent and present on the left. Really? Kindergarten for early years, and I was 23. I had this little bell and I had a noisy classroom and I had someone saying, sambhalo inko. And I thought, kahani sunate hain. Let me tell them a story. I rang my little bell, no response. Then I sat on the floor and I said, chalo kahani sunte hain. And that's where the journey began. Now, these children taught me one thing very important, because for them, that was their first day. And it was the way they learned how to learn. And now every day, everybody was taking attendance and filling all those columns, and my children would be listening to a story in the morning. So it was a story for science, it was a story for math, it was music with stories, and it was just the daily routine. And after doing all this drama and doing, the dramatics and the puppets and the thing, finally one mundane story which had nothing in it would become the anthem of the class. So children are like that. They would just pick a list of things, and every single day, after every possible thing, they will listen to that same story all over again. So for me, storytelling began like that. Another very, very big part of my journey comes from the folk tools of India. As I travel through the country, and I am a traveler, I travel sometimes more than 120 days in a year, and into the heart of India with, people I meet. And the one thing that I learned is the tools, something as simple as a damaru, get them in. Like you all were talking, so I'll do this with a story. That's what I know how to do best. So with your permission, ek jaldi se main aapko actually folk tools, ek simple process sunakar aapko ek kahani sunati hu. So is that okay with everybody?
Yes, carry on.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, great. So दंतापुर में दानव आया, दंतापुर में दानव आया. तो किसी ने मुझे पूछा दानव क्यों, लेकिन जिस गांव में मैं गई थी वहां पे दानव की कहानी चल रही थी. तो सबने दानव को कहा कि दानव राजा ये दुकान पे आए हो, इतनी टॉफी मत खाना. लेकिन दानव तो दानव था, खोल खोल के टॉफी खाई, खोल खोल के टॉफी खाई. सुबह सुबह आवाज आई, सुबह सुबह आवाज आई, दान दुख गया भाई. Then you use something like, which is a simple lathi and a ghungru, and say dada dadi, nana nani, chacha chachi, mama mami, sab kahan aaye. नाना जी अपना दातून लेकर आए. दानव राजा को दांत साफ करना सिखाया. कैसे सिखाया? ऊपर नीचे गोल गोल, ऊपर नीचे गोल गोल, और खुला करने के लिए नल बस थोड़ा सा खोल. तो जब मैंने ये कहानी करी और मैं वापस आई, तो टीचर ने अगले दिन मुझे फोन करके कहा कि मैडम आज सुबह सब बच्चे आए और आते ही सबने कहा ऊपर नीचे गोल गोल. और मुझे ऐसा लगा कि it could be any character. Finally, it is what you're using for the storytelling. Early years is a vibrant place. आप कितनी टाइप की कहानियां कर सकते हैं. पटकथा, आपने पटकथा के बारे में सुना होगा. It is about a story on a screen. So simply as this. Once upon a time, there was a land of black and gray. A very angry king lived there. A butterfly came and saw that there were no children around. There was no happy sound. So she asked the king, why is this? So the king said, I like my land like this. So the butterfly said, come with me to my land of summer sun and see what colors may be. And then the king asked all the butterflies to come and drop the colors and make it beautiful and fun. And if it was in today's context, I would say the butterfly got a little hand sanitizer and she got some soap. Let's just happily wash our hands and keep everything clean. Soon everything's going to be beautiful and green and children are going to come out and play. So it's imagination, it's language. You can get them to color. You can do names of colors. You can do the phonemic awareness. Butterfly. What is the sound of the color pink? And if I may ask you, which color of butterfly did you see, Swati ji? You saw a little butterfly coming. What was the color of your butterfly?
Yellow.
Can I ask the other panelists to tell me what is the color of your butterfly, Kalchekkar? Aap bataye?
Yeah, I also fortunately saw yellow.
Oh, no, it was not fortunate. Ashish, what did you see? Did you see the butterfly at all?
Nope.
So need to develop imagination. See, stories are going to help you.
I saw
Yeah.
multiple colors. I saw multiple colors: green, red, orange. Very beautiful.
So beautiful. So just see with one story, we all saw different things. Possibly we learned different things. And that's what storytelling is all about in early years. It's a simple, very, very powerful tool, very vibrant. Thank you. That's from my perspective.
Nice. Very unique way. And that's what we love about this panel, right? Everybody has a very different perspective on storytelling and how important storytelling and is how also, right? Hey, Bhavin, I know it's going to be hard to follow Sonia there, but
I know,
what?
because
You got to do it.
I just felt like, Sonia should go on with her poems and the stories, and we keep on hearing her, and having got all the experts with the psychology topic, Dr. Swati having a deep experience in the early child. I would like to start with a quote from Albert Einstein. If you want your children to be smart, tell them stories. If you want them to be brilliant, tell them more stories. And that's how I think so, a journey of a story, which I guess so Dr. Swati rightly pointed out, story is life. So it goes without saying that probably while my childhood, the most complex math equation or the lengthiest history answer that I would have written and probably have got somehow good grades, I wouldn't have remembered now. But if you ask me about what I remembered from my childhood, so the Panchtantra stories, the Tenali Raman tales, which probably my parents, my teachers would have told me, I still remember. So that's the power of story. According to me, like stories are like magical moments in early years. Whenever I have seen, and still when we go to visit so many schools, when I interact with teachers and kids, the sparks in the eye that I see while kids consume a story, it speaks to their imagination. It's one of probably during childhood, and I'm sure you all are experts, but probably the one of the best thing which I have noted about story is it creates deep bond amongst a storyteller and the consumer. It could be a child or it could be an adult.
True.
There are various facets of things which gets emerged when we involve a subject like stories. Obviously, in early childhood, it encourages them to read texts. It introduces new vocabularies. Obviously, kids learn in a very effective way. I have also seen while in one of my best stints when I was at the judging round in the ICANN, that is Design for Change movement, a lot of stories that kids used to write were more about inspiration. There was a lot of enthusiasm that used to surround around whenever there was a storytelling session going on. So one of the biggest thing that stories among kids build up is motivation. Obviously, imagination is something that carries forward throughout the life. More so ever, I think so. More importantly, which I wanted to touch upon during this panel when it's gathering and being from education world, I want to touch upon that storytelling is also an art, and that's where our fraternity, where all educators are united. This art is something which should be inculcated at each and every level. And it's high time now, probably, unlike in an evaluation method, while you're creating the basics of learning, storytelling is integrated and a storyteller is been rewarded. I would have known probably, unlike in India, we know, unlike an early childhood educator who would be paid less, and probably now taking it to the stories which a Bollywood writer would be writing it, beautiful stories, but they are not much recognized, or they are not much known to people. So it's high time a brand or a company or government bring in something like the best storyteller, because the impact that a storyteller can do on anyone's life, it's going to be lifelong. So my views would be largely to inculcate more and more this inculcation of this art of storytelling amongst education, and probably it's one of the best way to build a character. Thank you.
Thanks, Bhavin. I think we've started getting a lot of questions. Also, some of them are already being answered by some of the panelists. So I think we will want to take. Sorry, yeah, Colonel. Yes.
Yes,
please.
just wanted to ask you, Ashish, a question for you. Why didn't you name it Triangle Panda? Why did you make it Square Panda?
Wait, it's a story, right? This is all about story. It's that
Let's hear
same
that story,
storytelling.
sir. Let's hear that story before we go to the questions.
So like I said, first of all, it wasn't me, but the way the company came up with the name of Square Panda, panda being one of the smarter animals, and as such, we wanted to use a character that itself is an intelligent character. The whole story behind why square and why not round is because what we believe is through the education we're going to provide, we're going to round the edges of the child, right? There's a saying in the US that you round edges, right? To make the child complete. And as such, we take a square, we round the edges, and we get the nice rounded panda, right? And that's the story behind why square, because that's where the kids start. And we ultimately want them to become nice rounded pandas. But yes, that's a story. I got your point, Colonel. So yesterday, Colonel, while talking to me, he said, you know, everything is a story. And then he used this as an example with me saying, you know, that's a story. And I think that's a great way. I think what everybody said is part of daily life, not just learning, how we connect, how we engage. Our marketers today use storytelling as a big way to connect with the audience that they're trying to get a message to. I do want to come up to some of these questions. I know, Sonia, you have marked one of them you want to answer. I just one that is very relative to today, and I want to make sure that I ask this to the panel. You know, somebody asked during lockdown, how can we do storytelling without props? In the absence of teaching aids, how can we make it more interesting? And I think that's something that a lot of us are wondering as parents, and even as teachers that are trying to hold our classes from inside our homes where we don't have the teaching aids or props with us. So whoever wants to start with this, please, you're welcome to
May I?
take a stab. Sure, Swati.
So may I go first? And then I think Sonia would like to contribute also. I think one of the two best things for a storyteller are not the props. It's your voice and your expression. So how you use your voice and modulate it, how you are able to speak like a bird or growl like a lion, that is what engages children, because that captures their attention that, oh my God, did the character change? And your expressions play a huge part. And especially now that teachers are giving online lessons, they get a little conscious that, you know, if I make an expression like this, and what if somebody takes a picture and posts it somewhere? So teachers just need to get out of all this and enjoy the session with the children, because that's exactly what I'm going to do tomorrow. I have a session on Facebook with crossword. I'm not going to use any props. It's just my voice and just my expression telling the story. So it's very important for teachers to understand, don't worry about the props, don't worry about, I didn't have this teaching aid or I didn't have this musical instrument. Your expression and your voice, you got it.
Absolutely. I quite agree and completely. There's also a question here that says, you know, how to start stories with children who are not interested. So make your stories more interesting. You know, you can't make children listen. That's not how it works. You just have to make yourself better and keep improving. And there is no expert in this field. Each one of us can get foxed by the 3-year-old who looks at you and says, "Jao nahi sunna." So we are never experts. We're just learning. And each time a child says, I don't want to do this, then you think of 5 ways to make it better so that he wants to do it. I think that's what I would do to a story.
Yes, Colonel.
Yeah. Adding on to what both Swati and Sonia said, think of you like a cricket or a sports commentator on radio. How do you build that excitement? How do you relate to what is happening? Most often than not, we are unable to use our tone, tenor, as just now we heard bird sounds, as just now Sonia said it so very beautifully. And also, when Hanuman is compared to a Superman, accept it, get on with it. Bring in Harry Potter to Ramayana. Get Mahabharata to be contextual of today. We tend to believe that there is only one way of storytelling. That's absolutely very different. We all have our different ways of doing stories. And even more importantly, the Bhagavad Gita, yeah, that's a good story to hear. The Bhagavad Gita heard by Krishna is different from what Arjuna understood, what was recited by Sanjaya, and the interpretation of Dhritarashtra. Each one has got a different interpretation. As long as your values and moral systems you want to inculcate and the lessons you want to do work the right way. I've heard many a time stories when the Prime Minister used Mahabharata when he announced a lockdown, 18 days. He talked about Ramayana and Lakshman Rekha. They are metaphors for people to understand as a master communicated there. Therefore, there are various ways of doing it. There are no one fixed ways. Do what suits you best. And sometimes you can even recite a story without speaking a single word through your actions.
Yes. Great.
Thank you.
Bhavin, Dr. Jawar, anything you guys would like to
Yeah.
In fact,
Yeah.
okay, go on, Dr. Jawar.
I am running Jawar sir ke class. Today is lesson 18 and 19. Around 11,522 people are engaged in that. And we are trying to do another part of storytelling where the student or family engagement is increased. So for children, I might say Jack and Jill went up the hill and to fetch a fill of water. Jack fell down, I stop it there. And then there are different stories from different children. So it becomes a two-way process. Storytelling becomes a two-way process. Secondly, we are asking children to write stories of a world without mirrors. Ladies might find it difficult, but we are trying to do something. Or if the astronaut wants water, how does he drink? So we are trying to do things which will create imaginative powers within the children, and they have it more than us. So that is something that I wanted to add to storytelling.
In fact, I wanted to add one more view and a question. Unlike we see a lot of these Bollywood films where more than 90% flop because they don't have good stories, and couple of films, though they will be more than 3.5 hours, but people who would have not gone through any formal education, they also will remember the dialogue till songs from like more than three hours. They'll remember like picture to picture. Now, while that so-called that script writing would have been, or the script writer who would have done that story, my comment and my question, and in fact probably Dr. Swati can answer: is there a method? Is there a method, or it can't be only God gifted, right? If an educator, or if there is a training, or if there is some kind of ways and means where story could be inculcated, I'm sure that script writers and storytellers like us in education world, we are storytellers. We write stories. There are biographies, there are autobiographies that has got some skeleton, that has got some kind of a method to narrate, which will engage. So is there something where in early childhood there someone can inculcate this kind of habit or education?
From the creators of the award-winning English Early Literacy Phonics playset, we bring to you a research-based, revolutionary and cutting-edge English reading product. Square Tales combine digital learning with physical application, transforming your pre-readers into independent and confident readers. Your child starts instantly from our bookshelf. Our patented blending engine helps your child blend letter sounds to form words with only 8 letters. Once they practice the words, they can start to read along the story through a very engaging and interactive interface. Several engaging activities at the end of each book help the child revise what they have learned.
Good job!
And while the children revise, our product assess their learning. Just try Square Tales 15 minutes a day to see a stark progress in your child.
So Bhavin, first of all, I would love to thank you on behalf of myself and my husband, because not many people know, but my husband is a film writer. And when you said the government must have awards for storytelling, and the storytellers in the film industry get ignored, the dialogue writers get ignored. So that's so true. My husband is Pathik Vats, and he's written films like Sarfarosh, Qayamat, Teesri Aankh, and Char Saabzade. And it becomes, it's a very deep process that I see him go through. For others, when you watch the film, it's just 3 hours of fun. But I know, because I met him during Sarfarosh, and it's a day and night job. They suddenly get an inspiration to add a dialogue or to add a scene, and then it becomes a process to convert that thought into written form, and then to put it in a dialogue, and then to train the actors. I've actually seen him say the dialogues to the actors, so that the actors get the idea about the inflection to be used, the emotion that must come out, where to pause at which word, etc. So Bhavin, you deserve a kudos for identifying the two people in this world, which is teachers and script writers and dialogue writers, who don't get their due. They don't even are remembered. Even now, people will remember Amir Khan was in Sarfarosh, but everybody loves the dialogues of Sarfarosh, but nobody knows who the dialogue writer was. Nobody tried to find out. So it's very important to understand that I feel schools should also call these people to give workshops to teachers, because there is, of course, a process. Everybody like Sonia and me are not born storytellers. Teachers need to get inspiration from people that, okay, you can write a story like this and you can bring in this emotion. So I feel this kind of a synergy between education and the film industry, or writers, journalists, is really going to help teachers understand that there is a method also in the madness. It's not just about being mad, but there is a training, there is a way in which stories need to evolve, need to come out, and need to be told. So I think you have a very pertinent point there, Bhavi.
In fact, Ashish, while you're in your venture, when you draft all stories, the research, I know that you have a lot of backing of a lot of these Ivy League researchers when they frame stories. Is there any kind of method while you put stories? Means, can you just tell an imaginative stories always to kids? Can you bluff to kids? Can you just give them any kind of random example? Is it backed by some kind of fact? Because a kid would be very curious to know more and more things. So is there a chance that tomorrow, if you get trapped where a teacher cannot answer, that I'm just doing a rosy picture that I saw a blue leaf on the tree? It's good to imagine, but boss, the blue leaf, I've never ever seen it. So are these methods good methods to tell kids? Is there a science behind it?
So I think Sonia wanted to say something. I'll let Sonia first add her thing, and then I'll answer it. Sonia, go ahead.
So, like he just mentioned your company, and when I saw your card, and the first thing that interested me when you said Square Tales, so I said, oh, wow, I have to listen to this. And when you were saying a method or a process, one thing that I have seen so significant is the more stories your teachers will say, the more equipped they will become. And like you said, you don't feel a blue leaf is possible, but please let me tell you, for early years, a blue leaf is fine.
Yeah.
It really, I mean, it's actually fine. It's because adults will say, oh, is it possible? But my little one will not only make a blue leaf, he will put little dots in it and he'll put a doll in it also. That's what early years is all about. So,
and Bhavin, I mean,
Okay.
adding to Sonia, so our teams, when they're working with Stanford and others on drafting these stories, and if you look at some of the stories we're drafting, it's very simplistic, right? It's for a young child to understand, and the limitation is not making sure that it relates to the real world. As long as they're understanding and learning what we want them to learn, the belief in the team is it doesn't matter. If it is blue, it is blue because we wanted to teach them blue. And I think Sonia has a point, and if you ask our curriculum team, they'll say the same thing. Yes, usually green, but they're also orange and red and yellow and several other colors. And yes, by the way, there may be a blue leaf that maybe you and I don't know about that somebody else may be able to identify somewhere in the world. So yeah, I mean, to your point, Bhavin, yeah, the limitation is not, do we make it very aligned to the real life, as long as the child understands what we're trying to teach them.
So
While we were talking, there are a couple of, sorry, yes.
I'll add in this that, yes, there is a method to how you create stories. One is the visual imagery. The person who's writing a story will have to first visualize. It might not be simple English which he is writing. And the second is the outcome that is desired out of that story is something that is very important that he visualizes when he writes a story. And now the outcome might be the end result. But to achieve that end result, if I am able to visualize the journey, it's a fantastic story. Without that, it looks without emotion.
in fact, you have to live the story. You know, when you write it, you have to live it for those reasons. I think that's important.
So, you know, a lot of people, as we get all these questions, I was trying to summarize a few of them, so at least we can combine a few of them. One, a question that got asked by multiple people, and I think there's opposite views on this. So on one side, somebody asked, you know, a lot of these stories have a negative ending, where, let's say in the fish story, the fish dies. Then somebody asked, well, a lot of the stories have happy endings, and is that really called for? Because real life is not about only favorable outcomes. So I think both very opposite views of each other, but I'll let the panel kind of talk about, I know, how should a teacher or a parent deal with each one of these. Again, they were asked by different people, but interesting that they have opposite views on the same thing.
From the point of view of early childhood education, it's very important for teachers to understand emotional development also when they are choosing the stories to tell in their classrooms. Children in the early years are just experiencing emotions. So it's very important for us to go positive to negative and not start with negative. So in the early years, the choice of stories becomes very, very important because we don't want them to lose their motivation for life, or they are feeling that we don't want to teach them that life is not good and life is depressing and everybody is bad and everybody falls down and everybody dies. Imagine if we were only going to tell them those kind of stories. They're very, very depressing. So I think depressing stories should be told after the age of 5. So if you notice the Grimm's brothers, all their stories had wicked mothers and somebody's head was cut out. Or even if you see our Ramayana and Mahabharata, they were stories which did have violence. But there is an age at which these stories are told, and these stories, if you're telling the same story to a 3-year-old, you would naturally take out the gory part and not want that child to be exposed to it. So it is very important that you keep the age of the child in mind, and that's why teachers need to understand emotional development, that they don't harm the emotional development of children when they are telling them these stories. After the age of 5, children are quite open to negative things. They understand that this is not going to happen, that this is not real. So between 5 and 6 years is the right time to expose children to these kind of stories.
Sure, Colonel.
Yeah. Right. Swati has answered it quite well. But in the present context where we are all cooped up in a lockdown, just now I've come to know that the school lockout is extended by another 30 days. It would be wise for the hope part to be preponderant, because all around you, you have hundreds and thousands of people falling sick and getting things going. Presently, I would definitely go for hopeful stories, which make it very contextual as of now. The rest, the science behind it. At the end of the day, storytelling is an art. Storytelling is contextual. Storytelling will talk about, I do not know how many now across the world, people from Australia are starting a story. Some of us are filling it up sitting in Bangalore. Swati in Bombay adds something. Sentences, stories are being created, and that become your memories. When they become your positive memories, they create expectations, hope, context. So presently, I would really go in, even for a 5-year-old, till about 8, 9-year-old children. I would strongly recommend hopeful, positive stories, at least till the time this lockdown, COVID phase kind of tapers off.
I agree with you, Colonel.
Yes, completely.
So is it that, sorry, Colonel, just asking from my sake. So is it that because the situation or the environment around us dictates a certain mood, the storytelling changes? Is that what?
Yes, it does. Yeah, I would consider stress levels today around us. I mean, I have restricted my television viewing to about 4 spots a day. You open any television channel, you cannot live without Corona and COVID. From there, you pick up that 104-year-old lady who has survived, the 88-year-old, 93-year-old who has survived in Kerala. The stories and the songs the nurses narrated to these two to help them recover faster. Every day in the evening, the nurses would go across to these very cantankerous 93 and 88-year-olds, relate them stories, sing them songs. There were a group of them doing that, and that has helped them recover, and they are the oldest to recover. So presently, the stress levels, Ashish, are so high. I would, in the context of a child and the learning, around you, there is so much happening. And a child is watching his father and mother 24/7, which is not very desirable. Even for us to look at our wives is not desirable 24/7. The situation is such. So I would definitely second the thought that your present context does make you choose the right kind of stories. We do not want to, we do not want to go ahead and talk about Karna and how Karna was killed. We would rather talk about Karna and the sacrifices he made.
Yeah, Sonia, please.
So while everybody's talking about home and environment, I was thinking if we can use something as simple as, this is just a suggestion because I'm also seeing a lot of questions coming. Even if you take a normal curtain rod, I've taken a stick and you just put your dupattas on it, hang it out, put it on 2 chairs and make this your little talking chair. It's something which is therapeutic. And the minute somebody comes and sits on the talking chair, the family just sits down and listens to that person. Because in spite of home working, it's not so easy because there are moms who are actually working in the whole day. And, children are craving for attention. So I suggested to a couple of moms that take a chota sa peedi, chota stool and carry it wherever you go, maybe. And if you want your child to be involved with you, you say, acha chalo kal ki kahani is pe khade hoke sunao, mama sun rahi hai. A little more eye contact, a little more, creating a little space for speaking. And in fact, this talking stick is something which I use for older people also. So we tell them that if you come and sit here, हम सब आपके बैठ जाएंगे और आपकी कहानी सुनेंगे. Because it's not just children, even older people want their stories heard, you know. So, and yesterday, like this depressing thing, I had a friend who gave me a call and said, I'm not feeling too good.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I'm going to do a storytelling session tomorrow. And in spite of the fact that she's not a teacher, she said, oh, I'm going to join. And today morning, 7:30, a message came, I'm coming. So this is about story. This is about excitement. This is about creating that little spread of happiness. And it's so possible.
From the creators of the award-winning English Early Literacy Phonics playset, we bring to you a research-based, revolutionary and cutting-edge English reading product. Square Tales combine digital learning with physical application, transforming your pre-readers into independent and confident readers. Your child starts instantly from our bookshelf. Our patented blending engine helps your child blend letter sounds to form words with only 8 letters. Once they practice the words, they can start to read along the story through a very engaging and interactive interface. Several engaging activities at the end of each book help the child revise what they have learned.
Good job!
And while the children revise, our product assess their learning. Just try Square Tales 15 minutes a day to see a stark progress in your child.
Yeah, I'll add one more point. We did a survey of children. We spoke to them. We spoke to over 200 of them. One of the biggest points children said in the school I headed a few years back was, Mama and Papa are in love with the mobile. Can you please help them talk to us? It was as simple as that. So we worked out, we said half an hour during the dinner table, please take away your mobile and just listen. Suddenly, in about 2 weeks, we found children coming up with lot more stories and imagination. And as she pointed out, as a family, we had a system. 4 of us, 6 of us sitting together, and you start a family meeting with a story. And that's perhaps the best memory people have. So I entirely second what Sonia is doing. If you have this book, we will say a story. If you stand here, you will say a story. And body language becomes very important. You cannot have children saying stories when you are making your sambar and kadhi. You have to be patient with them. In between your sambar, kadhi and making your chicken, you cannot have children saying their stories. They will say, you don't care for us. That's a negative. We should be conscious of the environment we create.
I think I so agree with that. You know, in fact, I'm an author with the Oxford University Press. And I remember one day giving the MD a call and saying, I want to come and have chai with you. So he said, like, you can send me a mail. I said, no. In front of you when I tell you my story.
Yeah.
You know, because this is not about just children. This is about even early years teachers. I think somebody told me something very beautiful. He said, Madam, आप तो छोटे बच्चों के साथ रहती हैं, तो आप तो हट कर ही लेती हैं. So I think we become like that as early as educators. You just become childlike in the way you are. You're more excited with life. Every day morning, I don't know what we become so happy about, but that's the way we are. Swati ji would agree with me on that. That you just learn how to be happy people, because little children don't analyze as much as we think they analyze. They're happy when they're happy. So that's it, you know.
I entirely agree. I'm jealous of early childhood educators. The stories they can weave around, you know, that's it. Yeah.
So
I guess it's more age appropriate, I guess. So which is all everyone is agreeing. In fact, I just wanted to probably I'm just taking one of your role to, because this question was very important in my mind, and to ask the experts, what about the special needs kid and how is there a different method of storytelling with a different diagnosis of special needs when they are derived? How do you deal with that?
So you need to be, it's not only special needs children. I would consider that every child has a different need when you are telling a story. Some children will look at you with rapt attention. Some children will fiddle with their clothes. Some children will look outside the window while you are telling a story. Everybody listens to the story in a different way. And when you accept that as a storyteller, it means that you are actually a storyteller. Otherwise, you are an arrogant teacher, that I want everybody's attention on me. Why are you not listening to me? So I will tell you an example of a teacher who was telling a story. And she said Red Riding Hood was a little girl and she went into the jungle. Yash, sit straight. When she went into the jungle, she met the wolf. And the wolf looked very scary. Yash, don't do that. Now, when these children went home and their mummy said, tell me a story, these children actually told the story like that. Red Riding Hood went into the jungle, Yash, sit straight, and then they met the wolf. So you cannot interrupt a storytelling by telling a child to sit down or look at me. You are a storyteller. The audience disappears for you when you are telling a story. And only when you are disengaged, any child and every child will listen to you. So I feel special needs children also need to listen to stories.
Engagement.
But you have to be a little sensitive when it comes to autistic children, because autism is a spectrum, and there may be some children who are extremely sound sensitive. There may be children who are extremely sensitive to touch. So they need to be seated in a particular way in which others won't come all over them. And the sounds and all your volume will then depend on if you have autistic children in the crowd. So you need to just be a little sensitive to the needs, to the body language of the children sitting. And I think everything will be great then.
You don't think any props are necessary for any kind of, any of these special needs diagnosed? It could be only done orally. It could be
so as I said, it's a spectrum disorder. Some children like to look at pictures and colors. Some children get completely put off because the main problem with autistic children is that they don't have an eye contact. So don't expect them to look at you when you are telling them a story. But some of them are very good with visuals. In fact, there is a study that shows that they are very good at looking at stories on the screen. Rather than books, they engage more to stories on a screen. So ordinarily, you would tell other children not to look at screens, but for many autistic children, you have to involve screens also.
So, going beyond autistic and challenged kids, the other, I think a lot of people have a question around language as well, right? Today, English becomes a primary language that everybody wants to communicate in and talk about. But then challenges around the child not having, previous exposure to that language. Do you still have the storytelling in English, or is that, or the recommendation is that, listen, it can also be the mother tongue?
No, I think
well?
Storytelling is language agnostic.
Yeah.
So it is just the emotion that connects and not the language. So we see in government schools also that the local vernacular language storytelling is very effective. Very effective in the sense that it communicates everything and the outcomes are all there. So I think it's not very language specific. And like Colonel said, even mimes are fantastic storytelling things where there is no language. So I think language should not be a barrier. The only ability to communicate what you want to communicate to the child with the emotion that it is supposed to carry is the only prerequisite for storytelling.
So here there are two parts to your question, Ashish. English is basically always used in schools because a lot of parents feel that I put my child into an English medium school and why are you talking to the child in any other language? So that is why many of the teachers stick to English. But language is a very sensitive topic in our country. So we have to also keep in mind that the language we choose shouldn't always be Hindi. A lot of the South Indian states, the children there don't know Hindi. So it's very important to go local with the children when you are telling them stories, when you are singing songs. Even in our schools, in our IB pre-primary, we have songs in Hindi and Marathi because we are in the state of Maharashtra. So it may be an IB school, it may be an international school, but international schools also say local to global. So it's very, very important that language, as much as Maria Montessori says, in the first 5 years, children can pick up 7 languages together. So I think the more languages you expose children to orally, please don't get me wrong, otherwise teachers will start making them write in 7 languages. But orally, the more languages that you expose children to, it's very good for their brain development.
Right.
Thank
I'll
you.
I'll add one more point here. It is some study by an American university said that educated parents and non-educated parents in the conventional sense, by the time the child reaches 5, the parents who are educated speak 30 lakh more words than the so-called non-educated parent, the conventional sense. I believe storytelling is a great way of bridging this gap. It is completely language agnostic. A school which even before others have done Pallikudam in Kerala, they have early childhood till grade 2, the entire education is in Malayalam, the mother tongue, and the children later on do extremely well without any side effects whatsoever. In fact, I'm a strong believer in that the mother tongue should be predominant, at least in the initial stages.
Got it. Sonia, you had something.
Yes, I was also just saying that, as far as language is concerned, when I travel, because I travel to different parts of India, so you can't be using one language there. So every time people ask me, how do I say a story to children? So I always tell them, tell the same story in a pure language. Don't do these, word to word translations for children. Like Swatiji was saying, stories is about a flow. So do a happy flow in the language the child understands. And then when you're going to be using English, then do it in a complete flow. The children understand. Also, if there are 5 people in the house from different parts of the different languages, somebody speaking Tamil, the child will actually communicate with each one in that particular language. That's the ability of the child. So only thing that we suggest to earlier teachers is don't do these word-to-word translations. Just speak in pure languages. It helps a lot to develop the language as a complete tool.
Great. So unfortunately, somebody just pinged me saying you have 1 minute left. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that we only had a minute left, and we've got a good 40 plus questions still to go. So for the audience, I'll try to put together the questions, summarize them, and then share it with the panelists and see if we can get you answers on a lot of these questions offline. I want to take a couple of minutes with each panelist, kind of wrap up, give summary comments. And I think next time we'll do it a little more than an hour. Seems like an hour is not enough. We also didn't expect, honestly, that we would have such nice participation from the audience side as well. But that seems to go well. So next time we'll look at a little longer, more engaging conversation. But if we could just have everybody's kind of closing, summarizing comments before we part. Go in opposite order or the same order? Yes. It doesn't matter. How about opposite order this time?
Opposite is better.
Oh, okay. So for me, I just want to thank you very much. Anyway, for me, the summarizing part for stories, I think so. I want to take that line, story is life. It's precious, and everyone should be a storyteller.
Nice.
So for me, this is my first webinar with more people than normally I work alone. So for me, this is going to be my story to carry forward. Thank you.
From the creators of the award-winning English Early Literacy Phonics Playset, we bring to you a research-based, revolutionary and cutting-edge English reading product. Square Tales combine digital learning with physical application, transforming your pre-readers into independent and confident readers. Your child starts instantly from our bookshelf. Our patented blending engine helps your child blend letter sounds to form words with only 8 letters. Once they practice the words, they can start to read along the story through a very engaging and interactive interface. Several engaging activities at the end of each book help the child revise what they have learned.
Good job!
And while the children revise, our product assess their learning. Just try Square Tales 15 minutes a day to see a stark progress in your child.
Great.
Yeah.
Colonel.
It's been a great session, Ashish. First of all, thank you for hosting it, and you have been a wonderful moderator. But at the adult side, I always say, if that bloody apple did not fall on Newton's head, we would have been a lot better off. Can we think of getting students to learn Newton's second law of motion through Jasprit Bumrah bowling to Virat Kohli? In terms something beyond what is normal. We tend to only focus on early childhood for stories. I believe that getting beyond the normal, in fact, as we go ahead with this COVID-19, without solutions, without having context, learning itself becomes completely abstract and boring. That's my take. Storytelling is universal, language agnostic, and as Dr. Jawar started off with, it's for everyone, generations before, after, and the future to come. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Colonel. Dr. Swati.
Yeah, so I have 3 points. This is especially for the educators who are listening to us. There are 2 forms of stories, oral and written. When you are showing children books, story books, it's very important to understand that reading also gets involved. So it's very important that you don't use all capital letters in writing that story or the words, because we've noticed a lot of books coming out for children which are in all capital letters. Children at the age of 3 to 5, when they are starting to read, need to see print in all small letters or in the proper grammar format. My second point is that please invest in bilingual books. You have Tulika books, which are one side, one language, and the other side English. So when children see language in print from also in their storybooks, they fall in love with language and reading. And my third point is that, especially for teachers, because when you are making props for your stories, please remember Cartoon Network and National Geographic. So when you are telling a story about, to teach a concept like a lion or a tiger as a concept, please refer to National Geographic and use visuals of a real tiger and not a cartoon tiger or a lion, because this confuses children. Very important when you are teaching the sounds of letters also, please don't make the letter speak at anything except the sound, because the letter has a sound. And when you suddenly say letter A said main bahar jaunga, suddenly you are confusing the child that I thought letter A said A. So what happened? Why is he starting to speak? So these are very important early childhood guidelines that you must keep in mind when you are developing your stories. And my last point is Gijubhai. When I heard Sonia's first day at school, it was so similar to what Gijubhai experienced. So I think it's time right now to revisit the work of Gijubhai and bring back, as Colonel Shekhar also said, that why can't we teach Newton's law in a much more interesting manner? And that's exactly what Gijubhai did. And that's why the book Once Upon a Story. So it's very important that we give stories their due that they deserve.
Nice. Dr. Jawar.
Yeah. So again, great equalizer storytelling. From boys to boardrooms, it's taken over now. Boardrooms are also seeing a lot of storytelling happening these days. Again, language agnostic, a lot of emotion if you put in. We are also seeing science books across the world being written in the form of stories. Yeah. Science and mathematics books. And that makes it all the more interesting for the children. I think I wish we were children at this point of time when storytelling is evolving into all these things. We had storytelling only as storytelling, not as science, maths, etc. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you all for great insights. Chandar would like to thank you all once. You all know Chandar. He's been critical in getting this all set, getting all of you together here. So he just quickly wants to share a vote of thanks, I think, to you guys. Chandar, over to you.
A very special thanks to all the panelists and a bigger thank to all the people who joined us on this webinar from across the country. People from Jammu and Kashmir have joined us, to people from Chennai. We have got Mrs. Suman Sood from West Bengal to Harsha Ramaiya from Gujarat. So we have got a full set of people. A special thanks to all the panelists and their social media handles. They have shared our story within last 48 hours. We have set up the things and they have ensured that we have got this many number of people joining us. Personally, we invited around 15,000 people and around 1,000 have confirmed on our handles. A special thanks to all the panelists and a special thank to all the audiences and all the members of E.C.A and other social media handles who have ensured that our message has reached to the people. So a special thanks to all of you from our side and Square Panda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Chandra.
everybody.
Thank you, Ashish.
Thanks for your time.
Bye-bye.
See you guys
Thank
soon.
you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
From the creators of the award-winning English Early Literacy Phonics Playset, we bring to you a research-based, revolutionary and cutting-edge English reading product. Square Tales combine digital learning with physical application, transforming your pre-readers into independent and confident readers. Your child starts instantly from our bookshelf. Our patented blending engine helps your child blend letter sounds to form words with only 8 letters. Once they practice the words, they can start to read along the story through a very engaging and interactive interface. Several engaging activities at the end of each book help the child revise what they have learned.
Good job!
And while the children revise, our product assess their learning. Just try Square Tales 15 minutes a day to see a stark progress in your child.